Here we go. Okay. Good evening. I'm Tom Coscia. I'm a three-time DTM, past district director, and a member of the AIP, the American Institute of Virtual Parliamentarians. I'm also the president this year of the Virtual Parliamentarians Club out of New York City, and I've had a lot of fun with that, especially since I was born there. It was fun seeing New Yorkers. So let's first talk about many people think that parliamentary procedure complicates meetings. They are wrong. It is when parliamentary procedure is not followed that complicates meetings. And that was quoted by Dana Lamont, who is a world champion of public speaking. And I was thrilled when I'd seen him in Vegas when he was doing sessions. And then he was a member of the Virtual Parliamentarians Club. And it was, one thing unusual about him, and he was blind, and he's probably I guess he's the only blind person to win the world champion. And it was amazing hearing him speak and everything. And unfortunately, he passed away this past September. But anyway, something to think about. So let's start. What is parliamentary procedure? So really, it's kind of rules of the road for meetings. And there are various parliamentarian authorities, but the most popular is Robert's Rules of Order that started in 1876. So it's been around, I guess it'd be close to 150 years, come to think of it. And the other thing is that is what is used by Toastmasters is a revised version. Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, is what is used in Toastmasters, the latest edition. And currently, Roberts is in its 12th edition, which came out in 2020. And then it comes out a new edition every 10 years. So we suspect the most likely in 2020, 2030 will be the next edition. And you may ask, why do they keep having update editions? Well, some of the things that have changed with parliamentary procedures, how to do online meetings and online votes and everything else, and and transitioning into a different kind of world. And that's why they revise the procedures. And it's a pretty thick book. It's amazing how many procedures there is. So here are some basic parliamentarian concepts. One, we do one thing at a time. In other words, if you have a motion on the floor, you can't work on other motions until you've figured out the first motion. Now, there's things like amendments and everything else, but when you're talking about the primary motion, you only could do one primary motion at a time. You can only have one person at a time talk. And to talk, you need to be recognized by the chair. How are you recognized by the chair? You would say, Mr. Chair, Madam Chairman, something like that. In Zoom, you would raise your hand, and then when you're recognized by the chair, you're allowed to speak. When you're talking about motions, you can only have one. The same motion can only be voted on once a meeting or something similar to that. Enough people, if you're going to decide anything, enough people must be in attendance to decide, and that's called a quorum. Usually a quorum is a majority. So if you have 10 people, a majority is 6, not 5. You'll find other things when silence will equal consent in parliamentary procedure. Sometimes you'll say if there is no objection and you pause, if you don't have, nobody says anything, they assume you're consenting. And we'll give an example of that later. Everybody is equal in parliamentary procedure, but only members can participate. So the only members can speak on resolutions, make motions, second motions, all that. They all have to be members. And then all comments are directed toward the chair, not to the audience, but toward the chair. So these are the basic concepts. And in parliamentary procedure, it all starts with motions. And this is the big picture. A member makes a motion. Another member seconds the motion. The chair states the motion, placing it before the assembly. Members debate the motion. The chair puts the question to a vote. The chair announces the result of the vote. Okay. So this is the basic part of parliamentary procedure, and we're going to go into more detail. Any questions on that? All right, let's move on. Secrets to good motions. Motions start with I move. So every motion should be I move, and they do not say I motion, should not say that, or avoid saying so moved. The motion always starts with I move. Okay. Another secret to good motions. Motions should be precise. I move that we form a committee to investigate the purchase of a computer. That's not as precise as what you really want them to accomplish. I move that we form a committee to purchase a computer. That's more concise, more precise. Other secrets. Motion should be of a positive nature. I move that we do not support the national dues increase, or I move that we take a stand in opposition to the national dues increase. Have you ever seen things written where if you're for it, you vote against it? And that can be kind of confusing. So you always want to make it clear that you're going to do something in the positive. We do not support the national dues increase. Other secrets, and motion should be in writing. Okay. And this is especially critical in longer motions. Now, one of the things that's kind of cool nowadays, if you do something over Zoom, you can use the AI and it'll capture, well, at least for the secretaries, what the exact motion was. And that could be very helpful. Seconding a motion. A member does not need to be recognized to second an motion. So somebody could say a motion, I move that such and such, and then someone yells out second. They're good to move on. Now, if there's no second, and if the chair asks, is there a second, and nobody responds, the motion does not move forward. Motions from a committee do not need a second. Why? Because if it came from a committee, there's two people on the committee, so they know that there's two people that support it. And just kind of interesting, just because someone seconds a motion does not mean they must vote in favor of it. In other words, they could hear things and decide against it. And we have situations where people make a motion, and then after discussing it and they hear the debate, they decide they don't like the motion to begin with. They decide against it, and that's okay. When you make a motion or second a motion or speak in favor, it doesn't mean you're committed. So now, so you make the motion, it's seconded. Once the chair states the motion, the chair must state the motion. When stated, it is now owned by the group. Okay. And what that means now is that the original owner, they cannot withdraw their motion. Okay. Because once it's been moved and seconded, it's now the group, and the group has to decide what to do with it. The original owner has no control over it. Debating a motion. When debate starts, the originator has the right to speak first. Now, ideally, the next speaker, once recognized, will speak against the motion. You try to have pro and con, but that doesn't always happen. But one of the things to remember is that when they talk about the motion, again, all comments are directed toward the chair. And to maintain the impartiality, the chair is not allowed to participate in debate. Now, some of you are talking about small group meetings. In small group meetings, the chair can't participate in debate. We're talking about 12 or under. But anything over 12 is considered, the chair since they're running the meeting, they're supposed to be impartial. They're not allowed to participate in the debate. So debate ends when there are no more comments. Are there any more comments? If nobody says now, they can vote. We will now take a vote. Or if someone moves to the previous question, and we will talk about that. Voting on a motion. The chair may ask, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, the chair will repeat the motion, because it's important they repeat so people know exactly what they're voting for, and say, all those in favor say aye. Not yes, but aye. All those opposed say no. Now you think that would be nay. No, it's no, not nay. It's no. And then for the motion to be adopted, it must have more than half the votes. A tie vote means the motion is lost. If the results are obvious, the chair will repeat the motion and announce whether the motion has been adopted or lost. Note, the chair should never ask for abstentions. If you don't vote, you don't vote, but you don't need to take a vote on its abstentions. Moving on. If the winning side is not obvious, the chair may take a standing vote. Most of the time, it's a show of hands, them stand versus not stand. You could do ballots. You could do secret ballots. But if it's not obvious by aye and no, then you can do a standing vote. But if a member says division, and this is one of the things in the motions guide, the chair must take a standing vote, which means they must, count the votes, whether it's hands or submitting ballots or standing up or using your virtual hand. Now note, if a vote must pass by 2/3 and there's a standing vote is always required. Why? Because you really can't, it's hard to tell 2/3 when you're doing aye and nay. In a situation where all discussion was in favor of the motion, the chair can dispense with the voting, and this is where that silence equals consent, and say, hearing no objection, pause. They repeat the motion and then says has been adopted. But if someone objects, then they have to take a vote. But if everybody's speaking in favor, they're not going to sit there and go through the vote if they get to do this. You can say, if you have like an agenda that would be voted on, you could say, hearing no objection, the agenda has been adopted as presented. Again, you pause, you can do that. You could do that for stuff that's easy stuff. And that's a real way to move the meeting along and not get wrapped up in motions or votes that just take up time if everybody agrees with it. But if you're saying hearing no objection, pause, if someone objects, a vote must be taken. Now, unless the group has 12 or less members, the chair does not vote unless they are breaking a tie or they can change the outcome of the vote. So if it's tied, they're in favor of it, they could vote. Or let's say it wins by 1 and they decide they want to vote and make it a tie, and then it's not adopted. So in they can only vote if they can change the outcome of the vote. Excuse me. Amendments. Motions can be amended following the same voting procedures as motions. Each proposed amendment must be voted on separately before voting on the main motion. With each vote, it is important that the chair states how the amended motion would read if adopted. It may not be unusual for a main motion to have multiple amendments that must be dealt with first before voting on the motion itself, the main motion itself. And now we're going to talk about the ladder of motions. Only one motion is allowed on the floor at a time, but many secondary motions or amendments can be on the floor at the same time. In Roberts, there's a precedence of motions. Precedence, I'm sorry. Here they are, starting with the lowest precedence and working up. Always having the chart of motions at a meeting is invaluable, and that was the handout that I gave out, but emailed out to everybody yesterday. So the first one, and we're going to kind of move this quickly, no pun intended, move it kind of quickly because I don't want to get too wrapped up because you do have your chart, but this is the basic motion. I move that The purpose is to bring a main motion up. Can you interrupt a speaker? No. Needs a second. We talked about that. Yes. You debate on it. Yes. You can amend it. Yes. Vote is by majority. All right. That's the main motion. The next one that's higher in precedence is I move that the motion be postponed indefinitely. Now you could say, why would you want to? That's the same thing as voting on the motion, but it's a way of just eliminating debate, and maybe people don't have to take a stand because it was postponed. So it's a way to get out of having to vote on something maybe controversial. You don't want to, you're not good if you do, you're not good if you don't. So if you can just postpone it indefinitely, that's a way out. And that's why that's out there. So the purpose is to kill the main motion. Can you interrupt a speaker? No. Needs a second? Yes. Debate? Yes. Amend? No. And all it takes is a majority, and then you can postpone it. Move to amend a motion by modifying the words of a motion. You can insert words. You could strike out words. You could remove and insert. Okay. So can you interrupt a speaker? No. Needs a second? Yes. Debate? Yes. Amend? Yes. So you can amend an amendment. Vote majority. Move to refer to a motion to a committee. Why would you do that? Well, let's say you're in a situation where there's a lot of unanswered questions. And for you to make the right decision, you need more answers. So instead of deciding right then and there, you can refer the motion to a committee and they can research it and report back to your meeting. So you could say refer to a committee, purpose, okay? Interrupt a speaker, no. Needs a second, yes. Debate, yes. Amend, yes. All takes the majority. Now this one's I move to postpone the motion to, and you could set another date or another meeting to a certain time. Maybe someone needs to gather information or something. So you could say, can you interrupt the speaker? No. Needs a second? Yes. Debate? Yes. Amend, usually the time can be varied. That's what you debate on. And it all takes the majority. I move that debate be limited to. So if you think the debate's going long, you can limit or even extend debate, depending on your bylaws. Can you interrupt a speaker? No. Needs a second? Yes. Debate? No. Amend? Yes. Usually the time can be varied. But this requires a 2/3 vote, which would mean a standing vote. I move the previous question. Does anybody remember what the previous question means? Anybody? Okay. The previous question means you're going to you want people just vote on this. Let's get this over with. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Purpose, close debate. Interrupt speaker. No. Needs a second. Yes. Debate. Can't debate on it. No. Amend. No. Takes a 2/3 vote. I move to lay the question on the table. What's the purpose? Lay aside temporarily. You remember sometimes when I have unfinished business? This is where the unfinished business lies. It's set on the table and it can be pulled back at the next meeting. Interrupt a speaker, no. Needs a second, yes. Debate, no. Amend, no. Majority, yes vote. Call for the order of the day. These take more precedence. This says, hey, I don't think we're following the agenda or something doesn't seem right. Why are we discussing this? Make the group follow the agenda. That's the purpose. Interrupt a speaker, yes, because they feel that they're wasting their time because they're not on the agenda. Needs a second, no. Debate, no. Amend, no. No. The chair must address the motion and maybe consult with the parliamentarian too. I rise to a question of privilege. So what that is register a complaint or maybe something not being done right or not following parliamentary procedure. Interrupt a speaker, yes. And needs a second, no. Debate, no. Amend, no. Vote, no. And the chair must address the motion and maybe consult the parliamentarian. I move to recess. which means we get to go home, take a break. Interrupt the speaker, no. Needs a second, yes. Debate, no. Amend, yes. The length of the break may vary. All it takes is a majority. And then the final one, I move to adjourn. Close a meeting, interrupt, no. Needs a second, yes. Debate, no. Amend, no. Majority feels they want to adjourn it. The meeting's done. All right. Any questions on this motions guide? What we covered so far?
No.
All right.
Wait,
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned that if there's a tie vote on a motion, that it is no longer a motion. Did I
No,
hear?
I mean, it is not been, it does not, it will not be adopted.
It will not be adopted. So does that mean that somebody needs to try and put it back out there?
No, it means that it lost,
It's done. Okay.
right? Unless the chair would want to vote. If they haven't voted, they want to make a change to that, they could. So, all right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, we're almost done with this educational part, but there's one part, and there's a lot of incidentals, and there's more that's covered in the chart that I gave you, but we're going to cover the most common ones. There's no order of precedence. Arise incidentally and decided immediately. Here are some of the most popular. Point of order. You can say point of order. This is to enforce the rules. You can interrupt a speaker. Like, let's say maybe multiple people are speaking or they're speaking out of order. Needs a second, no. Debate, no. Amend, no. Vote, none. Must be addressed by the chair. That's the point of order. I call for division. That's when you have a vote and they say you're not quite sure if it really lost or it really won. So you say division. It demands the results are in question. Interrupt a speaker, yes. Needs a second, no. Debate, no. Amend, no. Vote, none. Rising vote must be taken. So it could be stand up, it could be hand counting, it could be various different things. Parliamentary inquiry, parliamentary law question. Interrupt the speaker, yes, if urgent. Needs a second, no. Debate, no. Amend, no. Vote, none. Again, must be addressed by the chair on the spot. Request for information. Ask for request. Yes, if urgent, you can interrupt the speaker. Needs a second, no. Debate, no. Amend, no. Vote, none. Must be addressed by the chair. I move to divide the question. This happened, I don't know how many of you were at the last council meeting, but we're voting on the procedures manual changes. And instead of voting on all the procedures at once, they want to divide the question and request that it be split so that it's not all or none, parts you want, parts you don't want. And from now on, when we do procedures, we will not try to do them in mass. We're going to split them up because it makes better sense. Interrupt a speaker, no. Needs a second, yes. Debate, no. Amend, yes. A vote majority. All right. So those are your most popular. Any questions on those right there? All right, it is now time. We are going to practice. So one of the things I'm going to do is stop the share. And I'm going to stop the recording.